Arc Raiders just got a ton of new dev updates, ranging from some new post-launch changes, as well as potential brand new mechanic implementations. On top of that, we have some additional things to go over, including a broad range of developer communications, and even some community feedback, debates, reactions, etc. We got a ton to talk about. What's up, World? Utopia here, back with another video. Today we're checking out all things Arc Raiders. Okay, so first off here, I do want to kind of cover some of the official things and some of the developer communications. That way it does tie into some of the community reactions. So the first one here does come from Arc Raiders executive producer, named Alexander Grandal, where in an interview they did mention they had ambitions post-launch roadmap plans. Now this interview was conducted a little while ago, but there's some additional context here that I think people did miss. Now of course they did briefly touch upon Stellamontis, and that we would be getting that update before Christmas. Of course, that one did recently happen. However, there were some additional things they tied up on that actually do kind of coincide and collaborate here with that. Where the first quote here is, "Our ambition is to keep things updated on a consistent basis with the new content, maps, arcs, and even quests, as well as some additional systems along the way." So we've seen a ton of those things. We have seen, of course, the new map recently, the new arcs and quests. However, we haven't seen new systems and other things they want to bring along here. Now, the next quote here, they do actually touch upon that maybe we'll see something before Christmas that has something to do with Stellamontis. Of course, that basically already happened, and it was well before Christmas. However, they also mentioned there's going to be a couple of bigger updates before the end of the new year, as the next year is still being planned out right now. So since they did use the plural here, bigger updates, it's fairly safe to assume that Stellamontis wasn't the only large update we're getting before Christmas. Now, if we do refer to the roadmap, we can kind of see some of the things they're talking about here. So the first one, we already had Northline, so all this stuff was already available. Of course, we got the new maps, Stellamontis, new gameplay items, and new quests. However, if we jump over to December section, we can see the Cold Snap area. So still yet to come, we have a Snowfall map condition, which I do believe they teased a little bit. And then next up, there's going to be a brand new event on top of that called Flickering Flames event. So much like we had recently with the Stellamontis community event. However, they don't label this one a community event, so it could be a little bit different here. But as far as we know, the name kind of suggests something pertaining potentially to the winter holiday themed events, or at least what could be those. It kind of essentially contrasts the cold weather condition. However, as of right now, we don't know the specific mechanics or objectives tied to that. Although, as I mentioned, because there is no community event here or community unlock event tied to this, I do believe this one is going to be a bit more personal to yourself, rather than it being an actual community event. Now, of course, we have the Expedition Departure window. I've shouted this one out several times, but I do have a video on the Expedition window here and how to gather everything and kind of the best route to take with everything. So if you want to check that one out, I'll link to it down below in the description. Of course, we also get a new Raider deck and some new quests. Now, this new Raider deck will be a premium Raider deck, as the launch version was the free edition, so I would at least expect that to be a paid or premium battle pass. But still really cool there, there's a lot of things to come. That wasn't all though, we had some recent developer comments and updates here, and this one did pertain to security lockers. Of course, by now you probably know those did get heavily nerfed, and we even had the community lead and manager here, Embark come out and say that security lockers were over providing valuable items. If you haven't seen, yeah, they're pretty heavily nerfed at this point. However, they might be introducing a new mechanic here. So because of this, Embark actually did put out another update on top of that, where she goes on to say that they know this change has affected a lot of you, especially because this skill tree is pretty hard set, so they are exploring the possibility of adding a skill reset mechanic. They do mention that balancing is important to them, both for overperforming and underperforming skills that they want to adjust over time. Yeah, I definitely agree there. I do think that they should give a one-time reset here. That was the first skill tree that I actually went into. From a little bit of my knowledge of the creator test, I always wanted to get those unlocked as I was super curious on those. Yeah, I was able to get some goodies out of them and then farm them for quite a while, but it does really hurt knowing that my skill is kind of useless now, especially since I'm getting gray and green weapons out of these things, which I think is a little bit overtuned there. I do understand them maybe not providing pink weapons, or even maybe not as many wolf packs, but it should still at least guarantee a green weapon, if not a blue tier, as this is quite the investment to get this skill perk and tree here. So I hope they kind of reverse a little bit on that overall, or at least provide somewhat of a reset mechanic there, even if it's just a one-time reset for those that want to do so. Now, because that kind of led on with some of the community feedback that I've noticed with it, as well as the recent patch, if you saw, there was actually a lot of XP nerfs, which actually did make it harder to progress. As this Games Radar article pointed out, some players are saying it's taking forever, but some do feel the nerfs are warranted. What I can say is I did actually come across a lot of players that were max level a few days into the game. So honestly, because of how they were farming things, I do actually kind of agree that the nerfs there for the XP were at least somewhat warranted, seeing as it did seem like players were advancing just a little too quickly, especially when I ran into somebody on day 3 that was already max level. There was just way too many farming methods that you could get through XP very quickly, and I honestly don't think it's that bad, especially with them wanting it to be on an 8-week cycle. If players can hit it in a few days, that does seem a little bit ridiculous there. So I do understand the nerf to XP overall. I am curious on your guys' thoughts on it though, and if you feel it was too harsh or you actually do agree with it. Before we move completely onto the community updates here, there was one other sort of official update where recently AMD actually finally did get the Adrenaline Edition for Arc Raiders, or at least their driver update now fully supports Arc Raiders here. There's actually quite a lot of posts on this. Some players were reporting that they actually had some issues after the update where it said that their driver was out of date. However, that should no longer be an issue as the new update 2511.1 actually does fix that issue, as that was updated on November 13th. So if you haven't seen and you need to, you probably should grab these drivers, as those should help with performance issues. And of course, on the same day we actually did have the Arc Raiders update. There was actually another build update to this, but this was to fix crashes. So on November 13th, they actually did have 2 builds posted, including this one here. But again, that was mostly just to fix a bunch of crash issues. Next up here, we had some community feedback as well as community updates. This first one is on the blueprint gathering data. So this person has spent almost 100 hours and they've been taking notes on where they've gotten blueprints. They do mention they even found 2 Tempest blueprints. So he said the way that he found them was on Buried City, Night, Space Travel, Breach Room, Top Floor, and the trash cans, as well as Spaceport, Night, Departure Building, and in a random desk. So it does seem like the trash cans are actually worth farming there. And I kind of do believe there is some sort of loot pool tied to different items. So it does seem like the desks as well as trash cans can actually have some really good blueprints in them. As they mentioned, Bettina can be found in a ton of places though, whereas the MK3 augments can be found in Security Room breaches, this one near the Blue Gate Underground Puzzle. And they mentioned that Wolfpack is very commonly found in damn apartment buildings at night. So yeah, it does seem like Night Raid is the way to go to farm those blueprints out. Again, I really do believe they'll eventually figure out that there is a specific loot pool tied to specific items. I farmed out so many security breaches and never found a Tempest or Wolfpack blueprint, and I honestly do believe those cannot be found in them. But I'm curious on what you guys found so far, especially inside of those. Next up here, we had a community suggestion. This one said, can we get a previous owner list to see how many different hands a weapon has gone through? I think that would be kind of cool to just have like a full list of players that have used the weapon. Not sure how much impact that would have, or that could coordinate a list of at least the top 10 or top 5. I think that would be really cool. I've actually never really seen this in any game before, aside from what one commenter pointed out here that Rust does whoever crafted and found the item for most, and other games like World of Warcraft or other MMOs have whoever crafted the item. But a full-on exchange list like this, or even a crafted list, would be really cool for this. Overall, that's about cover for today's video. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, and into the next one. Deuces.